My 21st birthday should have been one of the happiest days of my life. Instead, it became the beginning of a 7-year nightmare. After losing my mom to cancer at 14, her inheritance was set to come to me that day. But my stepmother Diane had other plans. She orchestrated a lie so horrific it tore my father and me apart in an instant. I never saw it coming. Her calculated deceit cost me not just money, but the only parent I had left. Before I share how my stepmother's lies cost me 7 years with my father, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit subscribe if family betrayal stories help you feel less alone in your struggles. I still remember the day the doctors told us my mom had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I was 14, awkward and gangly, more concerned with video games than the adult world. But that diagnosis forced me to grow up fast. The prognosis gave her 6 months. She fought for 9. During those final months, Mom was determined to put everything in order. She had built a successful interior design business, made smart investments, and maintained a hefty life insurance policy. Between all of that, she had amassed around $850,000 that she placed in a trust for me. "This money is your future, Andy," she told me during one of our last lucid conversations. "You will access it when you turn 21. It is not for cars or parties. It is for your education, maybe starting a business, buying your first home." She squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "Promise me you will use it wisely." I promised through tears. 2 weeks later, she was gone. Dad stepped up in ways I never expected. He had always been the more distant parent, working long hours at his engineering firm. Now he became both mother and father, attending my soccer games, helping with homework, and having awkward but sincere conversations about girls and growing up. We formed a bond deeper than ever before, united in our grief, but determined to honor Mom by moving forward. Diane entered our lives 18 months after Mom died. Dad met her at a grief support group. Her husband had supposedly died in a car accident just over a year earlier. Looking back, I should have verified that story, but at 16, why would I? She was different from my mother in every way. Where Mom had been warm and artistic with her curly hair, always escaping whatever attempt she made to contain it, Diane was sleek, polished, with an executive presence from her job in pharmaceutical sales. Mom laughed loudly and often. Diane had a measured chuckle that never reached her eyes. At first, Diane was nothing but kind to me. She brought thoughtful gifts, asked about school, and seemed genuinely interested in my life. She never tried to replace Mom, which I appreciated. Instead, she positioned herself as a friend, someone who understood loss and wanted to help both Dad and me heal. Their relationship progressed quickly. Within 4 months, Dad proposed. They married in a small ceremony 6 months after they met. I served as best man, genuinely happy that Dad had found someone who seemed to make him smile again. "Thank you for being so supportive," Dad said after the wedding, his arm around my shoulders. "Your mother would be proud of the young man you are becoming." Those words meant everything to me then. I had no idea how Diane would later twist them into weapons. The first warning signs appeared so gradually, I almost missed them. About 3 months after the wedding, Diane began asking casual questions about my trust fund. How exactly was it structured? When would I get access? Were there any conditions? I answered honestly, not seeing any reason for concern. "Just curious about your future," she said with that tight smile. "We want to make sure everything is in order for when the time comes." Around the same time, family gatherings began to change. My mom's sister, Aunt Heather, who had been a constant presence since Mom died, was suddenly excluded from invitations. "Diane feels we need to establish our own family traditions." Dad explained when I asked why Aunt Heather was not coming for Thanksgiving. "We will see her another time." But that other time never seemed to materialize. One by one, connections to my mother's side of the family faded. Even Dad's friends came around less frequently. The household financial dynamics shifted too. Though Dad had always handled the money, Diane convinced him to give her access to all the accounts for simplification. She implemented a budget that seemed to prioritize home renovations and her clothing allowance while cutting back on things Dad and I had previously enjoyed. "We need to be more responsible," she would say when Dad questioned any expense. This is what mature couples do. Dad became increasingly dependent on Diane emotionally. He consulted her on every decision, large and small. When I voiced concerns, he would dismiss them. Diane has experience managing these things. We are lucky to have her, he would say, as if reciting a line she had taught him. I noticed all of this, but I dismissed most of it. Dad seemed happy, and I was busy with my own life. I had graduated high school and started at the state university, living on campus, but coming home regularly for weekends. My plan was to finish my undergraduate degree, then use some of my inheritance for graduate school in architecture, honoring Mom's creative influence, while following my own passion. During my junior year, I had several meetings with the family lawyer, who managed the trust. Everything was on track for me to receive access when I turned 21 in 3 months. Each time I mentioned this at home, Diane would become noticeably tense, changing the subject or suddenly finding urgent tasks that required her attention. The weekend before my 21st birthday, I came home from college excited about the future. Little did I know, it would be the last time I would set foot in that house for 7 years. Diane's behavior during that weekend visit was strange even by her standards. She created multiple situations where we would be alone together, which she had never done before. She would touch my arm or shoulder during conversations, standing closer than appropriate. At first I thought she was just trying to bond, finally accepting me as family after nearly 4 years. On Saturday evening, Dad went to bed early with a headache. Diane suggested we watch a movie in the living room. She sat uncomfortably close on the couch, asking personal questions about my dating life at college. I answered vaguely, focusing on the film, and texting my girlfriend Sarah throughout, to ease the awkwardness. "Your father works so hard," Diane said during a quiet scene. "He does everything for this family. It would destroy him if anything disrupted the life we have built." The comment seemed out of nowhere, but I just nodded, unsure how to respond. Around midnight, I headed to the guest room that had once been my bedroom before Diane converted it into a more mature space during my freshman year. I fell asleep quickly, exhausted from finals week. Sometime around 3 in the morning, I woke to the sound of my door opening. Through bleary eyes, I saw Diane entering the room wearing a silk robe. I sat up immediately, confused and uncomfortable. "Diane, is something wrong?" I asked, reaching for my phone on the nightstand. "I just wanted to talk more about tomorrow," she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Your big day." "Can it wait until morning?" I asked, increasingly uneasy. She placed her hand on my arm. "Sure, Andy. Sleep well." She left, and I immediately texted Sarah about the bizarre interaction, documenting the exact time and what was said. I even took a quick picture of the rumpled corner of the bed where she had Saturday. Something felt very wrong, and some instinct told me to create a record. I locked the door and pushed a chair against it before going back to sleep. That decision would later become crucial evidence, though I did not know it then. The next morning, my birthday, I woke to screaming. Rushing downstairs in my pajamas, I found Diane sobbing in the kitchen while Dad held her, his face contorted with fury when he saw me. "How could you?" he shouted. "In our home. To your own stepmother." I stood frozen, completely confused. "What are you talking about?" Diane pulled away from Dad, her face streaked with tears that seemed to appear on command. "I cannot even look at him," she cried. "Last night, after you went to bed, he cornered me in the hallway. He said disgusting things, Jack. He tried to. He put his hands on me. I rejected him, and then he threatened me. Said if I told you, he would claim I came onto him first." My blood ran cold as the trap became clear. "That is a complete lie," I said, my voice shaking. "Dad, she came into my room at 3 in the morning. I have proof. Check my phone." But Diane had thought of everything. She grabbed my phone from the counter where I had left it when coming downstairs. "See how he has his story ready," she yelled, clutching my phone. "He probably deleted whatever evidence was against him." She had created a scenario where it was her word against mine, knowing Dad would believe his wife over his son. But she had gone further than just accusations. She had staged evidence. Dad pulled out his own phone, showing me text messages supposedly from my number to Diane, containing inappropriate comments and suggestions. They were obviously fabricated, sent from some spoofed number, or created with an app, but they looked convincing to someone who wanted to believe them. "These are not from me." I insisted. Check the actual phone records from the company. Stop lying, Dad roared. We found your browser history on the family computer, too. The things you have been searching. She had planted that as well. I had not even used the family computer during my visit. And there is this, Diane said, producing a necklace I had never seen before. I found it in my private drawer. He must have gone through my things. I have never seen that before in my life, I said, desperation creeping into my voice, as I realized how thoroughly she had orchestrated this. Dad's face had turned to stone. The man who had been my rock since Mom died was now looking at me like I was a stranger, a threat. Your mother would be ashamed of what you have become, he said, his voice low and deadly. Those words cut deeper than anything else could have. I felt physically ill, like someone had punched me in the stomach. Dad, please. I begged, tears forming. I would never do this. Diane is lying. She wants my inheritance money. Think about it. Why would I risk everything for something so disgusting? I have a girlfriend. I love Sarah. You know me. But he did not know me anymore. He had become so ensnared in Diane's web that he could no longer see clearly. The man who had taught me about integrity now refused to even consider that his wife might be manipulating him. Get out of my house, he said flatly. Pack your things and leave. You are no longer welcome here. Dad, it is my birthday. The trust fund, I will be calling the lawyer tomorrow. You have proven yourself unworthy of your mother's legacy. Consider yourself cut off. Diane smirked behind Dad's back, her tears mysteriously dried. In that moment, I saw her for what she truly was, a predator who had found the perfect prey in my grieving father. I packed my things in a daze, trying repeatedly to reason with Dad, but he would not listen. By noon, on what should have been one of the happiest days of my life, I was standing on the sidewalk outside my childhood home, bags at my feet, completely shell-shocked. As promised, Dad contacted the lawyer the next day. While he could not legally prevent me from receiving the trust as it was written, he added his own devastating blow. He cut me out of his will, entirely removed me as beneficiary from his considerable life insurance policy, and made it clear he wanted nothing to do with me ever again. The financial hit was severe, but nothing compared to the emotional devastation. Within 48 hours, I had lost my only remaining parent, my childhood home, and my sense of security. The panic attack started that night in the cheap motel room I had rented, not knowing where else to go. For 2 weeks, I lived between that motel and my car until the money ran out. I could not return to campus housing since the semester was over. Eventually, my college roommate Tyler learned of my situation and convinced his parents to let me stay with them until I figured things out. Without family financial support, continuing college became impossible. I had to drop out with just 1 year left, deferring my remaining loans and watching my career dreams crumble. Just like that, Diane had succeeded in destroying everything I had been working toward. The next year passed in a blur of survival. I found work at a construction company, then picked up evening shifts at a bar and weekend hours at a coffee shop. Between the 3 jobs, I could afford to share an apartment with 5 other guys, each of us occupying tiny bedrooms in a rundown house on the edge of town. Depression hit me hard. There were weeks when getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain. The betrayal cut so deep that I struggled to trust anyone. My relationship with Sarah fell apart within months. I believe you, Andy. I really do, she said during our final conversation. But you are not the same person anymore. You are angry all the time, suspicious of everyone. I cannot help you if you will not help yourself. She was right. I had become someone else. Someone hardened by circumstances I never should have faced at 21. But her words did spark something in me. I realized I needed help. Through a community program, I found affordable therapy. My counselor, Dr. K, helped me process the trauma and begin rebuilding my sense of self. What happened to you was a profound injustice, she told me, but you have a choice now. You can let this define you forever, or you can use it as the beginning of a different story. Slowly, I began to heal. I stopped viewing myself as a victim and started focusing on what I could control. I got promoted at the construction company, learning valuable skills from the veteran builders who took me under their wing. I saved enough to enroll in night classes at community college, working toward an associate degree in construction management. 3 years after the accusation, I felt stable enough to reach out to Mom's side of the family. I called Aunt Heather, who broke down crying when she heard my voice. "Andy, we have been trying to find you," she exclaimed. "Diane told us you wanted nothing to do with any of us. She said you had become involved with drugs and cut off contact deliberately." The depth of Diane's manipulation stunned me all over again. She had not just separated me from Dad, but had systematically isolated me from everyone who might have helped or questioned her narrative. From Aunt Heather, I learned disturbing information about Diane's past. She had been married not once before Dad, but twice. Both marriages ended under suspicious circumstances, with Diane walking away with substantial financial settlements. "Your father's health has been declining," Aunt Heather added softly. "He had a minor heart attack last year. Diane controls everything now. His medical care, his business interests, all of it. No one is allowed to visit without her approval." That conversation sparked a fire in me. If Diane had done this before, there might be evidence people who knew the truth. I began an investigation that would consume the next 4 years of my life. My first breakthrough came when I located the daughter of Diane's first husband. Jessica was 5 years older than me and had experienced a similar pattern of alienation from her father. Diane accused me of stealing her jewelry when I was 17. Jessica told me over coffee. Dad believed her without question. He sent me to boarding school, then cut contact when I kept insisting I was innocent. By the time he realized the truth, Diane had cleaned out his accounts and vanished. Jessica introduced me to a private investigator who had worked on her case. Martin Shaw had been tracking Diane's patterns for years, but could never compile enough evidence to bring charges. When he heard my story, he agreed to help pro bono. "People like Diane count on silence and shame," Martin explained. "Their victims rarely connect with each other. When they do, patterns emerge." Over the next 3 years, we built a comprehensive case. Diane had operated under 3 different names, targeting wealthy men recently widowed or divorced. She had a criminal record under her maiden name for fraud and identity theft convictions that occurred before digitization made background checks easier. The crucial piece of evidence came from an unexpected source. My old neighbor, Mrs. Fenton, had installed security cameras after a burglary scare years earlier. When I reached out explaining my situation, she checked her archived footage. "I never liked that woman, Mrs. Fenton said. Something about her eyes never seemed right. The footage she found showed Diane entering and leaving our house through the side door at 2:45 in the morning on my 21st birthday, exactly when she claimed I had cornered her. The timestamps matched my text to Sarah perfectly. Additional footage showed her planting something in the bushes, which we later determined was where she had hidden the spoofed phone used to send the fake text messages. With Martin's help, we uncovered email records, proving Diane had been planning the accusation for months. She had researched trust fund laws, contacted lawyers about contesting inheritance distributions, and even joined online forums discussing how to manipulate family dynamics. Further investigation revealed testimony from our former housekeeper, who had witnessed Diane practicing crying on command and coaching Dad on how to respond to various scenarios. The most damning evidence came from bank records, showing how systematically Diane had been draining Dad's accounts over the years, transferring funds to offshore accounts in her name only. She had been preparing for an eventual exit, taking everything she could along the way. As the evidence mounted, I faced a difficult decision. Should I bring this information to my father? After 7 years of silence, did he deserve to know the truth? More selfishly, did I want to reopen that wound? My therapy sessions with Dr. K focused heavily on this question. Forgiveness is not about excusing what happened, she advised. It is about freeing yourself from carrying the burden of anger. Whether you share this information with your father or not should be about what brings you peace. I might have decided against contacting him if not for one final piece of news from Aunt Heather. Dad had been diagnosed with advanced heart failure. His doctors gave him less than a year. Despite everything, I could not let him die believing a lie. 7 years and 3 months after I had been thrown out of my childhood home, I returned. The house looked smaller somehow. The once vibrant garden now manicured to sterile perfection, much like Diane herself. I had called ahead to the hospital where Dad was receiving treatment. His doctor, sympathetic to my situation, after I explained some of what had happened, arranged for me to visit during a time when Diane usually went home to rest. Walking into his hospital room was like stepping into another dimension. The robust man who had taught me to throw a baseball and build model rockets was now frail and diminished tubes connecting him to various machines. His once dark hair had gone completely white. His eyes widened in shock when he saw me. "Andy," he whispered, his voice thin and raspy. "Hi, Dad," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. He stared as if seeing a ghost. For a moment, I thought he might call for security, but then his eyes filled with tears. "I never thought I would see you again. I never thought you would want to." His initial coldness melted as we talked cautiously about neutral topics, the weather, the hospital food, the view from his window. Then I gently steered the conversation toward the reason for my visit. "Dad, there are some things you need to know about Diane, about what really happened 7 years ago." His face hardened. "Andy, if you came here to rehash..." "Please," I interrupted, opening the folder I had brought. "Just look. For Mom's sake, if not for mine." Slowly, methodically, I walked him through the evidence. The security footage showing Diane's movements that night, the forensic analysis of the fake text messages, bank statements revealing Diane's systematic theft, testimonials from her previous victims, the criminal record she had hidden. With each piece of evidence, Dad seemed to age before my eyes, the full weight of his mistake crushing him. When I played the security video, showing Diane rehearsing her accusation story the week before my birthday, tears streamed down his face. "How could I have been so blind?" he whispered. "Grief makes us vulnerable," I said, echoing words my therapist had used many times. "She is very good at what she does." We were interrupted by the hospital room door swinging open. Diane stood there, designer handbag on one arm, flowers in the other. Her perfect mask momentarily dropped in shock at seeing me. "What is he doing here?" she demanded quickly, composing herself and rushing to Dad's side. "Jack, you should not be upset in your condition. I will call security." "No," Diane, Dad said with unexpected strength. "You will sit down and explain why our neighbor's security camera shows you sneaking out of the house at 3 a.m. on Andy's birthday, exactly when you claimed he attacked you." The color drained from her face. "What ridiculous story has he been telling you?" "You cannot believe I have seen the evidence," Dad interrupted. "All of it. The fake texts, the offshore accounts, your previous husbands." Diane's facade began cracking. Her eyes darted between us, calculating her options. Then she attempted one final performance. "Jack, darling, he has obviously manipulated these materials," she said, her voice honeyed with concern. "You know how technology can be altered. He wants your money, just like he always has." "The only person who has taken my money is you," Dad replied, pressing the call button for the nurse. $3.4 million transferred to accounts I never authorized. The prosecutor I spoke with while you were gone finds that particularly interesting." Her mask shattered completely then. The sophisticated, controlled woman transformed into something feral and desperate. "You were nothing when I found you," she hissed. "A pathetic, broken man who could barely function. I gave you purpose. I managed your life while you wallowed in grief." "Get out," Dad said quietly. "The locks have already been changed. Security is waiting to escort you from the building and the house." Hospital security arrived within minutes, along with 2 police officers who had been waiting nearby. As they led Diane away, she turned to me with pure hatred. "You think you have won. You have nothing. I made sure of that years ago. But she was wrong. I had something no one could take away: the truth." After Diane was gone, Dad and I had the conversation we should have had 7 years earlier. His remorse was profound and painful to witness. "I failed you," he said simply. "I failed your mother. Everything she wanted to protect, I helped destroy. We both lost years we cannot get back," I acknowledged. "But we have now. That is something." Dad told me about his terminal diagnosis. The doctors gave him 6 months at most. His heart was too damaged for a transplant, and the medications could only do so much. "I would understand if you cannot forgive me," he said. "But please know that not a day went by that I did not think of you. My greatest regret is that I did not trust the son I raised. I had imagined this moment for years sometimes with me, refusing forgiveness, making him feel the pain I had endured. But sitting there looking at this broken man, I realized that revenge would heal nothing. I forgive you, Dad," I said, taking his hand. "For both our sakes." The legal aftermath happened quickly. Dad had his lawyer draw up emergency amendments to his will, reinstating me as his primary heir and executor. We filed charges against Diane for fraud, theft, and filing false police reports. The forensic accountants were able to freeze many of her accounts, recovering almost $2 million she had stolen. Dad insisted on reinstating my original inheritance from Mom with 7 years of interest. "Use it for what she intended," he said. "Finish your education. Build something meaningful." The most precious gift, though, was the 4 months we had together before he died. I took a leave of absence from work and moved him to a better care facility closer to my apartment. We spent hours talking, filling in the lost years and rebuilding our bond. He shared stories about Mom I had never heard, and I told him about my struggles and triumphs during our separation. On his final day, I was holding his hand when he took his last breath. He left peacefully, having put his affairs in order and made what amends he could. 2 years have passed since then. The legal proceedings against Diane resulted in a prison sentence for financial crimes, though not as long as I had hoped. More importantly, her pattern of deception has been exposed, making it harder for her to target others in the future. I returned to school and completed my degree in architecture, graduating with honors. Part of the recovered funds went to establishing a scholarship in my parents' names for students who have lost parents. The experience changed me in ways I am still discovering. I am more cautious about trust, yes, but also more compassionate toward human frailty. We are all vulnerable to manipulation when we are wounded, seeking comfort in the wrong places. The truth takes time to emerge, but it always finds a way to the surface. 7 years seemed like an eternity while I was living through it, but in the grand scheme of life, it was just a painful chapter in a longer story. What matters is how we carry those experiences forward and what we build from them. Have you ever discovered a painful truth that changed everything? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story helped you feel less alone in your family struggles, please subscribe to hear more stories of healing and justice. Hit like if you believe in second chances, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that the truth always finds its way home. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the longest road leads exactly where you need to go.